Felicity's hand trembled on the coffee cup lid as she glanced up from the corner table in the cramped Brooklyn cafe. Her heart skipping when she caught the woman's eyes on her. Not fleeting, but locked. Like she'd been pulled into some invisible current. The stranger across the room, leaning against the bookshelf with a dog-eared novel forgotten in her lap, had that look. The kind that stripped away pretenses. Raw and unapologetic. Making Felicity's breath hitch in the suddenly too warm air. In that split second, before either could look away, the world narrowed to just them. The hum of conversation fading into a distant buzz. And Felicity felt it. That shift? Like the ground tilting under her feet. She was Felicity Harper. 28. A photographer scraping by on freelance gigs in the city that never slept but somehow managed to keep her awake with its relentless pulse. New York had been her dream since she was a kid in upstate. Flipping through National Geographic pages that promised adventure beyond the cornfields. Now, here she was. Camera always at the ready. Capturing fragments of strangers' lives. The fleeting beauty in the grit. But moments like this, they weren't planned shots. They were accidents. The kind that left you exposed. The woman set her book down slowly. As if testing the waters. Her fingers lingering on the cover. She had short brown hair that fell in soft waves just above her collar. Glasses perched on the bridge of her nose that did nothing to hide the intensity in her hazel eyes. Mid-30s. Maybe. Dressed in a simple sweater and jeans that hugged her frame comfortably. Like someone who spent her days surrounded by stories rather than spotlights. Felicity couldn't place her. But something about her posture, the quiet confidence mixed with a hint of hesitation, made her chest tighten. Felicity looked down at her notebook, pretending to jot something. But her pen hovered uselessly. Why now? Why here? In this hole-in-the-wall spot with mismatched chairs and the scent of overbrewed espresso clinging to everything. She'd come to escape the latest rejection email from a gallery curator. The one that praised her eye but questioned her voice. Whatever that meant. And now this. She risked another glance. And there it was again. That stare. Softer this time. But no less piercing. The woman stood, coffee in hand, weaving through the tables with a grace that belied the cafe's chaos. Felicity braced herself, pulse racing, as she stopped just short of the table. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice low and warm, like aged whiskey. "I didn't mean to interrupt. But I couldn't help noticing your sketch. It's the bridge, right? The one at dusk." Felicity blinked, following her gaze to the open page where she'd doodled the Brooklyn Bridge in quick charcoal strokes. A habit when words failed her. "Yeah," she managed, her throat dry. "That's Manhattan Bridge. Actually. From the rooftop last week. The lights hit it just right." The woman smiled. A small curve that reached her eyes, crinkling the corners. "Penelope. And you have a way of seeing things others miss." "I'm Penelope Reyes. I own the bookstore 2 blocks over. The one with the crooked sign." Felicity extended her hand, feeling the brief warmth of Penelope's palm against hers. Calloused from shelving books. She guessed. Felicity Harper. Photographer. Or trying to be. She laughed lightly. But it came out nervous. Echoing in the space between them. The handshake lingered a beat too long. And when they pulled away, Felicity felt the absence like a cool draft. Penelope gestured to the empty chair. "Mind if I join? Just for a minute. Promise not to stare." Felicity's cheeks warmed at the word. The admission hanging there. Bold and unashamed. "Sure," she said, sliding her notebook aside. "But only if you tell me what you were reading. The one you abandoned for my doodle." Penelope settled in, crossing her legs, the fabric of her jeans whispering against the chair. "It's this collection of short stories. About women finding their way back to themselves. Or to each other." She paused, her gaze dropping to the table. Then back up. Steady. The kind that make you forget where you are. They talked then. Words tumbling out like they'd been waiting for this exact collision. Penelope shared how she'd inherited the bookstore from her abuela, turning it into a haven for queer voices amid the gentrifying streets. She'd always loved stories, she said. The way they folded into your bones, reshaping how you saw the world. Felicity nodded, sharing her own fragments. The road trips across the Midwest chasing sunsets. The way light bent through cracked windshields to reveal hidden truths. Time slipped. The cafe emptying around them. Sunlight slanting through the windows in golden shafts that caught the dust motes dancing like fireflies. Felicity felt it building. That pull? A current humming beneath the surface of their laughter. Penelope's hand brushed hers when reaching for the sugar packets. And neither pulled away immediately. The touch lingered. Electric. Sending a shiver up Felicity's arm. When the barista called last call, Penelope stood reluctantly. This was unexpected. In the best way. Can I see your work sometime? Not the sketches. The real stuff. Felicity scribbled her website on a napkin, handing it over with fingers that still tingled. ID like that. And maybe swing by the bookstore. I could use a good recommendation. Penelope tucked the napkin into her pocket, her eyes holding Felicity's with that same intensity from across the room. Count on it. She turned at the door, pausing, the bell jingling softly. And Felicity. Next time, stare back. The door swung shut, and Felicity sat there, heart pounding. The napkin spot empty but the air still charged. She gathered her things, stepping out into the crisp autumn afternoon. The city alive with horns and footsteps. But all she could think of was those hazel eyes. The way they'd seen her. Really seen her. In a way no lens ever had. That night? In her tiny walk-up apartment overlooking the East River. Felicity scrolled through her portfolio. The images blurring as her mind wandered back to Penelope. She pulled out her camera, fiddling with the settings. But instead of shooting, she replayed the moment. The stare that had cracked something open inside her. Sleep came fitfully. Dreams laced with bridges and bookshelves. Hands brushing in shadowed corners. The next morning, she found herself at the bookstore before it even opened, peering through the window at stacks of volumes waiting to be shelved. Penelope was inside, humming softly as she arranged a display of poetry collections, her hair catching the early light. Felicity watched, unashamed now, until Penelope looked up and waved her in. They spent the day like that, unpacking crates of new arrivals, dust motes swirling as they debated authors over lukewarm tea from a backroom kettle. Penelope had a laugh that started low in her chest, building to something infectious. And Felicity found herself leaning closer with each shared story. By closing time, the sun dipping low over brownstones, Penelope closed the register and turned to her. Stay for the walk home. The streets were alive with evening commuters. But they moved slowly, shoulders brushing occasionally, the city's rhythm syncing with their own. At Felicity's stoop, Penelope stopped, the porch light casting soft shadows across her face. Today was good, she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of unsaid things. You make the ordinary feel like art. Felicity swallowed, stepping closer, the space between them shrinking. You make me want to capture more than moments. You make me want to live them. Their eyes met again. That same lock from the cafe, but deeper now, laced with possibility. Penelope reached out, tucking a stray blonde wave behind Felicity's ear, her fingers lingering on her cheek. The touch was tentative, then sure, and when their lips met, it was soft, exploratory, tasting of chamomile and courage. They pulled back, breaths mingling, smiles tentative but real. Good night, Penelope whispered, her hand squeezing Felicity's once more before turning away. Felicity watched her go, the streetlights haloing her silhouette, and felt the shift settle deep in her chest. A quiet promise unfolding. Weeks blurred into a rhythm neither had expected. But both craved. Mornings started with texts. Simple things at first. Like Penelope sending a photo of a sunrise over the bookstore awning. Caption with a line from Whitman. Or Felicity sharing a candid shot of a street musician. Her note reading. This one's for the playlist we haven't made yet. They met when schedules allowed. Stolen hours amid the grind. Turning the city into their private canvas. One crisp Saturday. Penelope suggested a drive upstate. Away from the concrete jungle. To the Hudson Valley where the leaves burned in fiery hues. Felicity packed her camera bag with lenses and film. Heart light as they piled into Penelope's old Volvo. The engine rumbling to life with a familiar cough. The highway unfurled before them. Windows cracked to let in the scent of pine and earth. Radio tuned to an indie station playing songs about lost loves and found homes. You ever think about leaving the city? Penelope asked after a stretch of comfortable silence. Her hands steady on the wheel. Eyes flicking to the rear view. Not forever. Just long enough to breathe. Felicity leaned back. Feet propped on the dash. Watching the landscape shift from steel to green. All the time. But then I'd miss the chaos. And you? She said it lightly. But the truth laced through. Heavy and sweet. Penelope reached over. Lacing her fingers with Felicity's. Thumb tracing slow circles on her knuckles. Good answer. They stopped at a roadside orchard. The air thick with the tang of apples and cider simmering in vats. Penelope wandered the rows. Plucking fruit and tossing it to Felicity with a grin. Their laughter echoing off the trees. Felicity snapped photos. Not of the scenery. But of Penelope. The way sunlight filtered through branches to gild her hair. Or how her eyes crinkled when she bit into a crisp Macintosh. Juice trailing down her chin. Later. By a creek edged with mossy stones. They sat on a weathered blanket. Sharing a thermos of coffee laced with bourbon. The water rushed past. A constant murmur underscoring their quiet. Penelope leaned against Felicity's shoulder. Her breath warm against her neck. My abuela used to say love is like these roots. She murmured. Gesturing to the gnarled oaks dipping into the stream. Tangled. Persistent. You don't see them until a storm uproots everything. Felicity turned. Pressing a kiss to her temple. Is that what this feels like? A storm. Penelope lifted her head. Eyes searching. More like the calm after. But yeah. A little terrifying too. They kissed there. Slow and deep. The world fading to the taste of apples and the rustle of leaves overhead. Felicity's hands roamed. Tracing the curve of Penelope's back. Feeling the steady beat of her heart sync with her own. It was easy. Natural. Like they'd been circling this for years. Not weeks. Back in the city that night. The high of the day lingered. But reality crept in with the subway rattle. Felicity's phone buzzed as they parted at her stop. A gallery email this time. Not rejection. But an invitation to submit for a group show. She showed Penelope immediately. Words tumbling out in excitement. That's huge. Penelope said. Pulling her into a hug that squeezed the air from her lungs. You deserve this. We should celebrate. They did. At a dimly lit jazz bar in the village. Sax notes weaving through the smoke-hazed air. Penelope ordered Manhattans. The cherries bobbing like secrets in the glass. Midway through the second set. As the singer crooned about blue moons. Penelope leaned in. Her lips brushing Felicity's ear. Dance with me. The floor was small. Bodies swaying close. But they carved out space. Hips aligning. Hands on waists. Felicity felt Penelope's breath hitch when their thighs brushed. A flush creeping up her neck. The music swelled. And so did the heat between them. Glances turning to touches that promised more. At Penelope's apartment above the bookstore. The stairs creaked under their hurried steps. Laughter muffled against kisses. The space was a reflection of her. Walls lined with shelves groaning under books. A worn leather couch facing windows that overlooked the quiet street. They tumbled onto it. Clothes shedding like old skins. Explorations tentative at first, then fervent. Penelope's skin was warm silk under Felicity's palms. Her sighs soft pleas that echoed in the dim light. Felicity traced paths with her lips. From collarbone to hip. Memorizing every curve. Every gasp. When Penelope arched beneath her, whispering her name like a prayer, Felicity felt undone. Pieced together anew in the tangle of limbs and whispered confessions. Afterward, they lay spent. Sheets twisted around them. Penelope's head on Felicity's chest. Fingers drawing lazy patterns on her stomach. This is real. Isn't it? Penelope said. Voice thick with sleep and something deeper. Vulnerability cracking through. Felicity kissed her forehead. Holding her closer. Real as the heartbeat I'm feeling right now. But dawn brought shadows. The next week, Felicity's show prep consumed her. Late nights in a borrowed studio. Prints drying on lines strung like laundry. Penelope buried herself in inventory. The bookstore's rent hiked again by landlords circling like vultures. Texts grew shorter. Calls missed in the shuffle. One evening, Felicity arrived at the bookstore unannounced. Takeout bags swinging. Hoping to steal a moment. But Penelope was behind the counter. Brow furrowed over spreadsheets. The air heavy with unspoken strain. Hey. Felicity said. Setting the bags down. Ty. Your favorite. Penelope looked up. Surprise softening her features. But fatigue lingered in the lines around her eyes. You didn't have to. It's been crazy here. They ate on the floor amid unshelved boxes. Chopsticks clinking. But the easy flow felt forced. Penelope poked at her pad thai. Then set it aside. The numbers aren't adding up. She admitted. Voice low. Might have to cut hours. Or worse. Felicity reached for her hand. Well, figure it out. Together. Penelope squeezed back. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. That's the thing. I don't want to drag you into my mess. You're on the cusp of something big. The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples spreading. Felicity pulled away slightly. Is that what you think this is? A distraction from your real life? No. Penelope rushed. But the damage hummed. I haven't done this before. Not like this. What if I can't keep up? Felicity stood. Heart aching with the distance widening between them. Then we learn. But you don't get to decide alone what we are. She left then. The bell jingling like a rebuke. The night air cooling the flush of anger on her cheeks. Back home. She paced. Camera forgotten on the table. The gallery invite mocking her from the fridge. Why did it hurt so much? This glimpse of doubt. She'd always chased impermanence through her lens. But with Penelope, she wanted roots. The kind that held through storms. Days passed in radio silence. The city's noise a poor substitute for Penelope's voice. Felicity threw herself into edits. Cropping frames to sharpen focus. But every image blurred with what-ifs. Then, on a rainy Thursday, her phone lit up with a voice message. Penelope's tone soft. Cracked. I was wrong. Come over. Please. Felicity went. Umbrella forgotten. Rain soaking through her jacket as she climbed the stairs. Penelope opened the door. Hair damp from a recent shower. Wearing an oversized sweater that swallowed her frame. I'm sorry. She said simply. Pulling Felicity inside. Arms wrapping tight. They talked through the night. Words pouring out like the downpour outside. Fears named and held. Penelope's past flickered in snippets. A college love that fizzled under family pressures. Leaving scars of unworthiness. Felicity shared her own. The nomadic childhood that taught her to pack light. Emotions included. By morning, the storm cleared. Leaving a tentative peace. Hands intertwined over cooling mugs of tea. But the undercurrent lingered. A whisper of fragility. As winter edged in. Snow dusting the sidewalks. They navigated it carefully. Date nights at hole-in-the-wall diners. Walks in Central Park where breath fogged the air like secrets. Yet Felicity noticed Penelope's silences growing. The way she'd withdraw into her books when stress mounted. One night, after a successful opening at the gallery, champagne bubbles still fizzing in their veins, they lay in bed. City lights painting stripes across the ceiling. "Your photos?" Penelope murmured, tracing Felicity's arm. "They're beautiful." "You are." Felicity turned, propping on an elbow. "But..." Penelope sighed, the sound heavy in the quiet. "But I'm scared. Of losing this. Of not being enough." Felicity cupped her face, thumb brushing her lip. "You're everything. We build it day by day. No rushing the roots." Their kiss sealed it. Slow and reaffirming. Bodies moving in sync. Chasing away doubts with touch. But as sleep claimed them, Felicity wondered if the storm had truly passed. Or if it was gathering force just beyond the horizon. Spring arrived tentative. Cherry blossoms tentative confetti against the gray skyline, mirroring the cautious bloom in their lives. The bookstore stabilized with a crowdfunding push. Locals rallying around Penelope's vision, turning the space into a community hub with readings and workshops. Felicity's show led to commissions. Her name whispered in art circles. But success tasted bittersweet without someone to share the glow. They planned a weekend escape to San Francisco. A whim born over late-night wine. Craving the West Coast salt air to wash away winter's residue. The flight was a blur of turbulence and tangled fingers. Landing in fog-shrouded mornings that clung like lovers reluctant to part. Their rented cottage in Sausalito perched on a hill. Windows framing the bay where seals barked at passing ferries. Mornings started slow. Coffee brewed on a stove that hissed like an old friend. Penelope in a robe that slipped off one shoulder. Felicity snapping Polaroids to capture the unguarded ease. They hiked the coastal trails. Wind whipping their hair. Stopping at overlooks where the Pacific crashed in endless rhythm. At one such spot, perched on driftwood, Penelope pulled a small box from her backpack. Velvet worn at the edges. "Open it," she said. Voice steady but eyes betraying nerves. Inside lay a silver bracelet. Delicate chain etched with tiny books and cameras intertwined. "For the moments we chase together," Penelope explained, fastening it around Felicity's wrist. Her touch lingering. "So you always carry a piece of me." Felicity's throat tightened. The metal cool against her skin. "It's perfect. You're perfect." She pulled Penelope close. Their kiss salt-tanged from the sea spray. Deepening until the world spun. But paradise held thorns. That evening, over seafood at a harborside bistro, Penelope's phone buzzed incessantly. Her sister calling from New York. "Family drama," she explained after the third ring. Voice tight. "Mama's not doing well. The doctors say it's her heart. But she won't listen." Felicity squeezed her hand under the table. "Go back. I'll come with." Penelope shook her head. But the offer hung. A lifeline in the swelling tide. They cut the trip short. Boarding a red-eye. The bracelets chime a soft reminder amid the engine's hum. Back in the city. The hospital corridors smelled of antiseptic and regret. Penelope pacing while Felicity waited in the lobby. Thumbing through magazines she didn't read. When Penelope emerged hours later, eyes red-rimmed, she collapsed into Felicity's arms. "She's stubborn. Like me. Thinks love is something you endure, not enjoy." They drove to the Reyes family home in Queens. A brownstone squeezed between laundromats and bodegas, where generations of stories steeped the walls. Penelope's mother, Elena, lay propped in bed. Frail but fierce. Her gaze sharpening on Felicity like a lens focusing. "So, this is the one who stole my daughter's heart," she said. Accent thick. Pulling Felicity into a hug that smelled of jasmine and worry. Over tamales and weak tea, Elena shared tales of her own youth. Loves hidden in the shadows of machismo. Sacrifices for a daughter's freedom. Penelope translated snippets. her hand never leaving Felicity's knee, grounding them both. By nightfall, as rain pattered the roof, Elena took Penelope's face in her hands. Be brave, Mia. Love isn't a storm to weather. It's the sun that follows. The words echoed as they returned to Brooklyn. A bomb on raw edges. But cracks widened elsewhere. Felicity's career pulled her toward Los Angeles for a month-long residency. An opportunity too bright to dim. Penelope encouraged it. Her smile brave. But goodbye at the airport was a quiet ache. Hugs lingering until security called. Emails bridged the distance at first. Vivid descriptions of sunsets over the Hollywood Hills. Photos of Penelope curled in reading nooks with notes like, "Wish you were here to capture this mess of yarn I'm untangling." But time zones warped rhythms. Calls dropping into voicemails heavy with "I miss yous." One night, Felicity wandered Venice Beach at dusk. Boardwalk alive with skaters and street performers. Her camera heavy around her neck. She shot the waves curling silver under the moon. But the images felt hollow, lacking the depth Penelope brought to her frame. Back in her borrowed loft, she video called. Screen flickering to life with Penelope's face. Tired but lit from the desk lamp. "How's the City of Angels treating you?" Penelope asked, forcing lightness. "Like a dream I can't wake from without you," Felicity replied. Honest to the bone. Penelope's expression softened. Then fractured. "I saw the article today. The one in the Times. They're calling you the next big thing." Felicity's stomach twisted. "It's just words. You know that. But do I?" Penelope's voice cracked. "The dam breaking. While you're there building empires, I'm here holding down a shop that's barely afloat. Wondering if I'm just the interlude before your real life starts." The call ended in tears. Screen going dark like a shutter snap. Felicity spent the night walking the Strand. Sand gritty underfoot. Waves mocking her isolation. Why did success feel like sabotage? Pulling them apart when they'd fought so hard to weave close. She flew back early. Unannounced. Landing in a dawn that painted the skyline pink. The bookstore was dark. Sign flipped to closed. But the upstairs light glowed. Felicity climbed the stairs. Key Penelope had given her months ago heavy in her palm. Penelope was at the kitchen table. Surrounded by ledgers. Head in hands. She looked up. Startled. Then rose. Crossing the room in strides that ended in a fierce embrace. "You're here. Always," Felicity whispered. Holding tight. "I chose us. The residency can wait." They cried then. Relief mingling with the hurt. Bodies sinking to the floor in a heap of limbs and apologies. Words flowed. Raw and unfiltered. About fears of abandonment. The terror of loving big enough to lose. Penelope admitted her mother's illness had unearthed old wounds. The fear of being left behind like Elena had been by her own dreams. Felicity confessed the nomad in her panicked at roots. Afraid they'd choke her wings. By morning, with sunlight slanting through curtains, they made promises over scrambled eggs. Simple vows to communicate the storms before they raged. The bookstore reopened that day. Felicity behind the counter snapping Polaroids of customers. Penelope shelving with renewed vigor. Summer hummed in. Heat waves shimmering off pavement. Their bond tempered stronger. They hosted a joint event at the store. Felicity curating a photo exhibit of city souls. Penelope pairing each image with a story excerpt. The turnout swelled the space. Laughter and clinking glasses a symphony of connection. One balmy evening. Atop the bookstore roof with string lights twinkling like stars. They danced to a portable speakers playlist. Barefoot on the gravel. Penelope's head rested on Felicity's shoulder. Breath sinking. "Whatever comes," she murmured. "We face it with eyes wide open." Felicity smiled into her hair. The city sprawling below like a promise kept. Eyes wide. Hearts bolder. Yet, as fireflies winked in distant parks, Felicity felt a new undercurrent. A whisper of change on the breeze. Testing if their roots could withstand the next gust. Autumn returned. Leaves carpeting the streets in crimson and gold. A mirror to the deepening hues of their love. The bookstore thrived. Branches sprouting with online sales and pop-up events. Penelope's vision blooming under community care. Felicity balanced shoots with teaching a workshop at a local college. Her voice steady as she guided students through light and shadow, drawing parallels to the vulnerabilities they all chased. But life layered complexities. Penelope's mother rallied, moving in temporarily for recovery. Her presence a warm chaos of home-cooked meals and unsolicited advice that left them stifling giggles behind closed doors. Elena took to Felicity like a second daughter, sharing recipes scrawled on faded note cards. Her stories weaving threads of resilience into their tapestry. One crisp October afternoon, as Felicity edited proofs in the bookstore's back office, Penelope burst in, cheeks flushed, holding a letter crinkling in her fist. "They want the space," she said, sinking into a chair. The words flat. "Developers. Offering triple the rent." Felicity set her laptop aside, pulling her close. "What do we do?" "We fight," Penelope replied, fire sparking in her eyes. "This isn't just a store. It's us. Our stories." They rallied allies. Petitions circulating through neighborhood groups. Protests planned with signs painted in bold strokes. Felicity documented it all. Her lens capturing the grit of determination. Faces etched with shared purpose. The campaign made local news. A blip in the endless churn. But enough to stall the eviction notice. Buying time like breaths held underwater. Through the fray, their intimacy deepened. Stolen moments amid the storm. Late nights after strategy sessions. They'd collapse into bed. Bodies seeking solace in familiar curves. Penelope's touches grew reverent. Mapping Felicity's skin like sacred text. Whispers of gratitude against her throat. Felicity responded in kind. Her mouth tracing promises on Penelope's collarbone. Their union a refuge where fears dissolved in sweat and sighs. Winter solstice brought a turning. The developers backed off, spooked by the uproar. And the bookstore secured a lease extension. Cheers echoing off the shelves during a victory toast. Elena, healthier now, returned home, leaving behind a kitchen stocked with empanadas and a blessing murmured over coffee. "Be each other's light," Shed said, eyes misty. "In the dark times." With stability came space to dream bigger. Penelope proposed a road trip south, tracing Route 66 in reverse. From Chicago to the Grand Canyon. A loop of America's heartland to remind them of beginnings. Felicity agreed. Packing light. Her camera the only constant besides Penelope. The drive unfolded like a novel. Chapters marked by motels with neon signs and diners serving pie warm from the oven. In Tulsa, they wandered Art Deco streets. Penelope reciting history from a battered guidebook. Felicity framing their shadows against gilded facades. At a roadside pullout in Oklahoma, under a sky bruised purple with dusk, Penelope stopped the car abruptly. "Look." Fireflies danced in the fields. Pinpricks of gold against the gathering dark. They lay on the hood, hands linked, watching the spectacle. "Remember that first stare?" Penelope asked, voice soft as the breeze. How it felt like fate tripping over itself. Felicity turned, propping on her side. Like the world paused. Just for us. And now. Now it's ours to keep shaping. Penelope leaned in. Kissed gentle. Deepening with the crickets' chorus. They made love there. Under the stars' vast canopy. The metal warm beneath them. Universe witnessing their quiet vows. Challenges lingered. Subtle fractures. In Santa Fe. Amid adobe galleries. Felicity landed an international gig. 6 months in Paris. Scouting urban decay for a documentary. The offer thrilled. But doubt shadowed it. Memories of separation sting fresh. Over green chili stew that night. She broached it. It's a chance to grow. But us? Penelope set her fork down. Eye steady. Go. Well visit. Letters. Calls. The works. Love isn't stationary. Remember. It's the road we travel together. Even apart. The words eased the knot in Felicity's chest. But sleep evaded her. Mind racing with what-ifs. Dawn found them hiking the canyon's rim. The Colorado River a serpentine ribbon far below. At the edge. Wind howling. Penelope took her hands. Whatever path you take. I'll be the one waiting at the fork. Always. Tears pricked Felicity's eyes. The vista blurring. And if the fork splits? Then we build a bridge. Like your photos. Connecting what seems divided. They returned east renewed. The trip a bomb-etching memories and shared glances. Spring bloomed again. Their one-year mark marked quietly. With a picnic in Prospect Park. Blankets spread under dogwoods shedding petals like confetti. As summer waned. Felicity prepared for Paris. Visa stamped. Bags half-packed. Penelope helped. Folding clothes with deliberate care. Her touches lingering. The night before departure. They walked the High Line. Rails overgrown with wildflowers. City lights twinkling below like fallen stars. At a bench overlooking the Hudson. Penelope stopped. Pulling a small journal from her bag. For the empties. She said. Pressing it into Felicity's hands. Sketches. Words. Whatever fills the silence. And when you come back? We fill the rest. Felicity opened it. Pages blank save for the first. Inscribed in Penelope's neat script, to the woman who saw me staring. And stared back. Her heart swelled. Pulling Penelope into an embrace that blurred the line between goodbye and see you soon. The airport farewell was tear-streaked but fierce. Hugs that compressed time. Promises sealed with a kiss tasting of coffee and resolve. On the plane. Felicity clutched the journal. Sketching the curve of Penelope's smile from memory. The bracelet chiming softly against the armrest. Months in Paris unfolded in grays and golds. Cobblestones echoing her footsteps. Seine bridges arching like lovers' arms. Emails flowed. Vivid with Penelope's daily dispatches. Bookstore anecdotes laced with I love yous. Felicity responded in photos. Eiffel Tower shadows mingling with cafe sketches. Her lens finding beauty in the ache of distance. Video calls bridged oceans. Faces pixelated but expressions clear. Laughter crackling through speakers. Penelope shared a new reading series success. Felicity a breakthrough shot in the Marais. Doubts surfaced occasionally. Voices softening to confessions. But they navigated. Words as lifelines. When Felicity returned. Stepping off the jetway into LaGuardia chaos. Penelope waited at arrivals. Signs scrawled with a heart-eyed emoji. Grin wide as the skyline. They collided. Bags forgotten. Kiss reclaiming lost ground. Home was the bookstore apartment. Familiar scents wrapping around them like welcomes. That night? Over takeout and wine. They pored over the journal. Felicity's entries mingling with Penelope's letters. A collaborative chronicle of endurance. Years layered on. Their story evolving. Not linear but rich with detours. The bookstore expanded. A second location in Harlem pulsing with voices from the diaspora. Felicity published a monograph. Images of women in quiet revolutions. Dedicated to the one who'd shifted her gaze forever. Alina's health steadied. Grandchildren's stories whispered in jest. Though they savored the now. Travels to vineyards in Napa. Beaches in Maine. Each horizon shared. Storms came. Job losses. Family losses. The world's relentless churn. But they weathered. Hands clasped. Eyes meeting in that original stare. Now deepened with lines of laughter and loss. On their 10th anniversary. Atop the same Brooklyn roof. String lights aglow. Penelope raised a glass. To the moment that changed everything. Felicity clinked hers. Bracelet glinting. And to all the moments since. That made us. They danced then. Slow circles under the moon. City humming below. Hearts full. Love, they'd learned, wasn't the hook, the shift, but the quiet persistence. The choice renewed each dawn. In the end, it left them not unbroken, but beautifully mended. Stories intertwined, ready for whatever page turned next.